welcome to the third interview of my celebration of Women's History Month. Of course, celebrating the stories, women's stories. And I know that there are a ton of stories out there. So I'm going to be able to repeat this whole series practically for the rest of my life, because there are so many stories out there that I want to share from people that I have met, people that have influenced my life. And so I think so far these interviews are going very well. But today, I am the person. I am the one that is speaking to you about my story. And again, if in case you missed it in the beginning, a lot of you may know pieces of my story, but not necessarily the whole thing, right? So I am going to start by giving you my bio, right? So you know who I am, where I came from, all of those nice, delicious details. So a lot of you already know, yes, I was born in New York City. That is exactly where I was born. My family was from Corona, Queens, then Jackson Heights. And I know a lot of these towns and names are like resonating with a lot of you, because in class you're like, yeah, Queens, yay, all this. So I know we share that whole New York thing. But when I was, I would say about 11-ish, or I was going to be 11, my parents decided that we were going to move to Long Island. And I definitely know there's a lot of Long Island people out there for sure. So we moved to Nassau County, which for those of you that have no clue what Long Island, oh, those are my dogs, what Long Island is like, it's about 45 minutes from the city. Okay, so it's right after Queens and then out into, you know, the more posh area, well, at the time, right? And so we lived in Elmont for a while, and then I did not leave my house, if you can believe this. This surprises a lot of people. I did not leave my house until the day I was married. I know, right? Super crazy, super traditional, but yeah, that's the kind of mom that I had. So I am the oldest, but I'm the only child from my parents' first marriage. I know, it's dramatic, but yes. So my mom remarried, my dad remarried, and I am still the oldest. First kid, first grandkid also. So anyway, we moved out to Long Island, and then I got married, and I moved even further out into Suffolk County. But in the process, even when I was young, my dancing career started when I was 5. And only because there was a dance studio right across the street from our apartment building. And my mom was like, that's great. She's just going to walk right over and it'll be fine. And that's exactly what I did for about 3 to 4 days a week. That's where I was. That was my life. And dance has been, for pretty much all of my life, it has been what shaped my life, and what has gotten me through a lot of my teenage years, right? Everybody's a teenager, you know what I'm talking about. Even my college years, and even now as an adult. So as far as my dance career, I became a professional ballerina at the age of 13. Yeah, I know, right? Crazy. And I was very excited because it was like a real job and I got a check and everything. I was only 13 years old. And then when I was in college, I had stopped dancing for a while, because, you know, my mom was like, it's great, it's a hobby, but you're not going to do that for the rest of your life. And so, you know, it's a common thing, right? The arts, it's not something that you can make a career out of. And so then in college, I kind of left it, and then I went back to it. And I realized again that I really, really missed it and I really wanted to do it. So I was 20 years old at the time, and I said, you know what? I'm going to try ballroom dancing. Why not? Right? I had the ballet training, so I was like, this is going to be a piece of cake. So I go in to the dance studio and I tell them my background. And it so happened that the owners of the dance studio were also ballet ballet performers, retired ballet performers. The wife was a prima ballerina, and the husband was a choreographer for the opera house that they both performed in. I was like, this is great. They got me, right? And so I started taking lessons. I loved it. It was like, it was perfect. It was, for me, it was perfect because I got to really show my character and kind of my alter ego when I would do my performances and things like that. Well, if you haven't guessed it already, that is where I met my husband. It turns out that the dance studio was owned by this couple that I just mentioned, and they had a son, their only child. And he was an instructor at the school. He was my instructor. And we clicked right away because we were very close in age, right? And so, so the rest is history, because that is where I met him. We spent a lot of time together. And those of you that know my mother-in-law, she is a resident of Solivita. So there you go. So if you see her now, you know, she was a prima ballerina for the Egyptian Opera House. So she's a big celebrity in Egypt. But anyway, so we get married. Everybody's happy, right? We have 3 kids. Now we have 2 dogs. And this is an exhausting life. It really, really is. And what makes it exhausting is that it's such a filled and wonderful, beautiful life that it's exhausting because we do so much to try to just be able to live and do whatever we can. So that is kind of the background on it. When I became a mom, I started to teach private dance lessons, right? Well, I was already teaching private dance lessons, but that's mainly what my job was. My husband said, you don't have to go back to work, to your full-time job, which was a paralegal, by the way, if you can believe that. That's what I was. I went to college, I did the whole thing, and I was a paralegal. Oh, and by the way, I was not allowed to go away to school, so I had to commute every day to school. Yes, I know. Again, traditional mom, even though she was rather young, but traditional mom. And so anyway, I was teaching. So my husband said, you know, we had the dance studio because his parents had retired. We took it over. And he said, now you can devote more time to this dance studio. I'm like, oh, great. Right. So I'm teaching lessons and everything. And we get a student that says, hey, you know, you're really great. You're one of my favorite teachers. I'm like, oh, thank you. He says, you know, there's this thing called Zumba. I really think it would be awesome if you taught that here. I think people would come and want to take your class. I said, yeah, I saw that, you know, that video. I don't know. It seems like it's a lot of like exercising, and I really don't like to exercise. So he says, yes, but it's exercise, but they're also dancing, and you have the perfect personality. You should try it. So I had literally just had our first daughter, Maya, and I think it was like 4 months I had her, maybe even more. And I said to my husband, maybe I should go try this out. He was like, go for it, whatever. So I went, and ta-da, the rest is history. Because I was hooked. I loved it. And those of you that have taken Zumba classes, you know what happens, right? You just get hooked. You get absorbed into the whole party atmosphere. You're exercising, but you're not really exercising, and you're dancing, but you're not really dancing, you know, so forget it. I was hooked. So that was, I think I finally got my license in 2004. And then I got like all of the Zumba licenses, right? Because there's several formats. And then I got really pulled into the whole world of fitness. So I started doing any and every certification and licensing that I could, that I thought would be fun. And we brought it to the studio and it was very successful. Even Drums Alive, that nobody even knew what that was. It was like, and even when we brought Zumba in, people were like, what is that? That's like, I've never heard of that. So yeah, so a whole bunch of certifications, even till this day, like even during COVID, I added my bar certification, TRX certification. I'm just like, give it all to me, give it all. I want it all. And it's been, and it still is, an exciting journey for me, because I do what I love, right? I stay in shape and I help others to do the same. So like it's like perfect, right? And I'm passionate about it. That's what I think the magic is. If you're wondering what it is that you're like, she has that little magic, I call it passion. That's what it is. My passion is not only the power of dance, because I believe strongly in the power of dance, but also the power of fitness, right? And I want to share it with everyone. I want to tell everyone what I've learned. And that's why it's part of the reason why I created the DanceFit Hub. Originally, the Facebook group was just this, it was a group. I think I said to a lot of my participants in my class, hey, I have this group. I'm going to be sharing pictures from classes and my schedule, and you all can join. And that's how it started. Then COVID happened, right? And that I really do believe that things happen for a reason, because even though for a lot of us, including myself, COVID was a dark time, it kind of still lingers, right? But for me, that was a big wake-up call. And as I'm going to be talking about, that's also when things changed for me as far as what I was going to do with fitness, and what kind of changes I was going to make, if you want to call it that. At the same time, though, my grandmother was feeling kind of ill, and we weren't sure if it was having to do with COVID or what the deal was at the time. But in the interim, what happened was the world shut down, right? The world shut down. And for a little bit, I was doing some classes on Facebook, to help all of you. And I would see all of my students, and I was getting excited and I was getting happy. And I was telling my husband, oh my God, like, I think they're really happy about this, because in the beginning, when I approached them, I'm like, I really miss my students and I'm so worried about them because they're home not doing anything. And, I think there's like some channel or something, and they're watching a channel, but I don't know exactly like what they're doing. They're probably miserable, and some of them live alone. I was just like, I was really depressed. So he said, well, let's try Facebook. So that's when we tried Facebook. We were doing classes. You all were on. And that was great. And I said to my husband, this is really great. And things were good for a while. And then Facebook kind of got smart and was like, oh no, you can't be playing music all the time. And so they started, to mute a lot of these live streams that we were doing on Facebook. And rightfully so, because, people were using music and there's copyright issues and all that stuff. So then I panicked again. And of course, my husband, if you don't know, he's like into IT and computers and whatever, right? So I was like, what do I do now? We're not going to be able to do this. He was like, don't worry, I'm going to figure it out. And then we started to do Zoom, right? And we did some of the Zoom. And still we were getting good response and all of these things. And I think what kind of happened through all that is people got a little more tech savvy than they ever imagined that they were going to be, right? Even for myself, you may think that I'm very tech savvy, but I am not. I have a husband who is super tech savvy. And that is how I learn, because I like to do things myself. So I have learned a lot. But anyway, we went to Zoom, and I had some of my clients, I'm going to call them, because not everybody was in this state at the time. There were some people that were still in their snowbird homes, wherever that was, right? And would join in on these Zooms and all this. And I said, you know what? I think I need to start something brand new. I think I need to start something where they can do the live classes. And then if they want to do the classes again on a day where I can't, they can watch videos. My husband was like, that sounds kind of smart. Let's see how we do that. So I'm like, well, how fast can you put together a website? He did it. He did it. It was like 1, 2, 3. He said, this is as fast as I can get it. This is how we're going to do it. You're going to tape your, you're going to do your class. We're going to tape them. We're just going to put them there. And that's what we're going to do. I'm like, okay, great. And so that is how my on-demand program happened. It just started growing and growing and growing and growing, because the library, I was teaching every single day, 2 to 3 classes a day, I think, virtually. And so that was building my library up. And I would do some free classes as well every now and then. But I really do have to thank those ladies that stuck with me and are still, some of them are still with me till this day, because if it wasn't for them, I think I would have lost it. What I did for them is what they did for me. I learned a lot about what it was like to live in a body that's over 55. I learned what's going on in here when you're over 55 and in the middle of a pandemic, right? So a lot of just stuff started to kind of come up, and I was starting to get like really super interested in what was happening, you know? And so through all of this, my grandmother got worse, and we finally discovered that it was that she had pancreatic cancer. And for those of you, like I had mentioned before, my grandmother is practically the person who I consider raised me. My mom raised me, but I spent a lot of time with my grandmother because my mom was always working. My mom at the time was a single mom, right? So you know how that works. You have to go out, you have to do maybe, you know, late afternoon graveyard shift, right? So she was fortunate that my grandmother was like, just bring her and we'll take care of her, right? So I spent a lot of time with my grandma. So she was like my second mom, right? So as the first grandchild, and my family will probably say this is true, I have always been the favorite. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say anything. I have always been the favorite. And it's just because I always took the time to listen to my grandmother and to observe and to ask her questions, right? So anyway, she gets ill. And of course, everybody has, it's like all hands on deck, because she was staying with my aunt in New York. And of course, she has a job, and she's like, you know, we just need whoever can help. So at the time, since I was virtual, I was like, hey, ladies, do you mind if I, you know, head to New York and I'll still give you your classes, but I'll be in a different location? And they were like, perfect, fine. So I went to New York, and I would spend about like a week or so over there, and then come back to Orlando, go back over there. And it was like for a while going back and forth. And at the time, it wasn't like stage 4 yet. It was still, you know, but the doctors had finally determined that that's what it was. And they basically said, you know, her time is very limited. It could be 3 months, it could be 2 months, it could be a month. We don't know. It depends on how this cancer progresses, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, somebody at some point that you've known or whatever. So I decided that the time that I was going to have with her was going to be about asking questions, right? And she knew what I was doing. I showed her and she was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. She's like, I wish they had this when I was, younger. I would have been able to do something like this. And I said, I know, isn't this great? And I would show her the pictures of my clients. I'd be like, look at this lady. I'm like, she's like 60 something. She's 70 something. And she would be like, amazed. She was like, oh my God, I can't believe that they're doing that. She's like, that's like amazing. I would not do that. It's like, I know that, because my grandmother all her life was super independent. She took care of herself a lot, which was, that's why she was so shocking that she actually had pancreatic cancer. But she was a breast cancer survivor as well. And so it was like, I just didn't understand how someone so healthy. I mean, she was the one that, like, you have to take calcium supplements, you have to eat oranges, you have to do, all these things on how to take care of ourselves. And then, but in the inside, obviously there was stuff going on that she was not aware of. So just the point of that is to know that even though you eat healthy, you look healthy, right? It's not always that you're healthy, right? There could be other issues going on. Now, even though she was all of that, she was not a fitnessy person at all. And I used to tell her, you have to kind of, you should do exercise. And when she would come and visit, I'm sure some of you remember, I used to bring her to class and she would sit there and be like, because she did not want to exercise. She's like, no, she's like, I walk every day for miles and miles. That's enough exercise. I'm like, yay, but you know how it is, right? When you have a doctor in the family and the doctor tells you what you're supposed to do and you're like, yeah, but that's not what my doctor says. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. So the fitness expert in the family, yeah, nobody listens to me about anything, but anyway, that's another story. But so she then would, I would tell her, you have to exercise. She would go to physical therapy. I'm like, yes, that is what I do. Those exercises, those are the exercises I'm telling you to do, all these things. So anyway, so I started asking her stories about when she was younger, stories that I didn't know yet, or I had never known before. Because sometimes when she would get really talkative, or even my grandfather, sometimes when he gets talkative, they'd start telling us things and we're like, you never told us that. Like, why didn't you ever tell us that? Right. But it just seems like when people are terminally ill, right, and that there's an expiration, you start to ask questions, and they in turn also start sharing stories with you that they want you to know, right, about them, so that they're remembered in a certain way. Does that make sense? So she started telling me about all these things that she used to do when she was younger, and I was just listening, and then I was like, what happened? Tell me more about menopause. Like, what happened to you then? Because obviously I'm not a spring chicken. And, I would tell her, like, sometimes I feel like this. And she was like, yes, that happens. I'm like, well, when were you going to tell me that? When were you going to share all that information? So she started giving me, again, more content, right, for things for me to research. And I'd be like, you know what? My client did say that was, she's like, yes, because this is what happens. And she would explain it to me, and we'd get into more conversations. But it was just, it's time that I spent with her that it was like, how do I say it? It's like golden, because nobody else really had those moments with her. I mean, she spoke to me about her kids individually, the things that she was afraid of, the things that she regretted, all of these little mini conversations. And I was just sitting there like, this is the woman that I put on a pedestal, right? That I thought was like Superwoman. Never saw her cry, never saw her, that kind of person. And here she was just being honest, being raw. And I really, really did appreciate that. And again, I was like, well, that's because I'm the favorite. And that's why she shared that all with me. But it was a very special time, and that she got to see what I was creating, because at the time it was still in development. And, you know, she said to me, she said, you are really doing a special thing. I wish that I had had somebody like you to hold my hand, to guide me, to tell me, to push me, to tell me that I could do all of those things, because, you know, I didn't have that. Although I was very strong and doing a lot of things, I think it would have, you know, it would have been a little different. So anyway, so that's my story of my grandmother without me getting too emotional about it. But she really did make a big difference. So right, I want to say like right before she passed, I said to myself, I'm like, you know what? I have to take my business in a different direction, because it's no longer going to be just about me trying to help my students, like, you know, do workouts and things like that. That's not what it's about. It's going to be more about really transforming themselves and changing their lives. And so at the time, I still was not in person. I think, I don't remember if I had started going back, but one of the conditions for myself on going back in person, because I was liking the whole virtual thing and I still am, but in person for me was like, okay, I'm going to do my thing. And this time around, I'm going to be honest. And I'm going to tell my students exactly what they need to do. And if they don't do it, I'm going to tell them exactly what happens if they don't do it. And I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be like how they say, hashtag truth. I'm going to be the truth. And the truth hurts, right? And this is when my grandmother was getting closer to the end. She went through like all these stages. And this may seem familiar to some of you that have had to care for someone with cancer. She went through the first where she seemed fine. And then it got really bad. So much pain, right? Uncontrollable pain. And then she went through an angry phase. She was super angry, super upset, and almost even nasty sometimes, right? And it kind of hurt all of us, because we were like, we're trying our best, you know, we're trying our best to help you. But at the same time, it was like, hold on a minute, we are the moms now. So at one point I turned around and I literally, I remember I said to her, I'm like, you need to stop right now. You need to stop, because this is what's happening to you. We don't know what in the past got you here, but it's here. And this is what's going to happen. And your time is limited. And we're all trying to help. And we're all suffering with you. You are not alone. We're here. We're holding your hand. You got this. Like, this is the rough part. And then there will be a time of peace, right? So she was just like, I know, you know, and she got it though. And it was okay. And I said, you know what? That felt good. That felt good that I was not afraid to kind of talk to her in that way and just be truthful. Because sometimes I really do think that the truth is what's needed, because we're so, especially in this day and age that we live with so much information overload, right? Information overload that you don't know what to believe. You're like, well, I read this and then I read that, but when I do those things, I don't feel that, you know? So that's when basically I decided, okay, I'm just going to be truthful from now on. I'm going to do the research for people. I'm going to see what's out there. I'm going to test it out. I'm going to see what, you know, you want to drop 10 pounds healthy, right? In a healthy way. Okay. What is that way? Because there's like a million ways to do that, right? So I did all my homework, and little by little, that's how I've established all of these little programs that I have, that some of you have experienced. And it's a learning process for me, because each and every one of you is completely different. You have different but similar, right, bodies and situations going on. So it has really just opened my eyes. And that's why when I do reach out to some of you, I know it's weird, but I do reach out. I shouldn't say to some of you, because I reach out to all of you and I send you messages. It's really me just checking in on you, seeing what and where and how I can help you in any way, because believe it or not, sometimes just a hello is enough, right? Just a, hey, how are you doing? Sometimes, it's nice to hear that. I like when people ask me that, and I'm like, you know what? Thank you for asking, right? Because it's nice to know that someone is actually thinking of you, and cares enough to ask. So yeah. So that program that I had with the ladies, right? I had one client in particular, and by the way, I just didn't make all this stuff up, right? I literally, because I told you I was not tech savvy, right? And I'm like, I need to make this work so that it's easy, right? It's easy for women to find the classes. It's even for, easy for them to get onto the classes, right? Because I know not everybody's tech savvy. So I did hire a business coach. I had to hire her, to explain to me how Facebook works. How do I do Facebook? How do I, how can I have my classes in a library? Like, we had to kind of structure all of these things behind the scenes to make it easy for the clients that I had. So although they didn't know it at the time, I had Candace, I had Pam, I had Christy, and I had Lynn, and they were kind of like my focus group, right, throughout the whole time. And so whenever we would, they would say, oh, I tried your class, I pressed the thing, but then it didn't take me there, and then I went here, there, and I'm like, okay, note to self, so I try to, again, it's all research, it's kind of trial and error, right, until you finally figure it out. But this particular program, like I said, this one's called Mojo for Life, because I'm always saying about trying to find your mojo, and it really is Mojo for Life. Everything that they experienced with me for 3 years is the Mojo for Life, right? They had me as their personal coach. They took virtual classes with me at the time because we couldn't do it in person, but now they do. Some of them take it in person and virtual. And they have all these pre-recorded classes. I check in with them, and it's Mojo for Life, because why? You're going to need it for the rest of your life, right? And so when I was trying to figure out who my ideal client was, right? I thought of one person. And the reason why I thought of this one person was because we really did get very personal during COVID. And we spoke about a lot of things. Now, was it research on my end? Yes, it was. But I also really, really got to know her. And there was a story that she shared with me after the fact, because she was like, well, I just want to tell you that when I was younger, I went to a ballet class, and I was told, the teacher told my mom that I would never be a dancer, right? And I'm like, what? Because you're such a good dancer. She's like, nope. So when I first met her in my Zumba class, she said to me, I'll never forget, she was like, I'm not a dancer, but I'm going to try this out. I said, okay, all right, and ever since then, she came every single day, every single time, every single class that I had. And little by little, she didn't notice at the time, but little by little, she was becoming this dancer, right? And then when we were working virtually, it was even more. Then she got into technique, and she got into all these things. So the dancing part was great, but then she was also told, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to expose who it is in a minute, but her doctor told her that the scoliosis that she had would prevent her from exercising, because she has not like a little bit of scoliosis. It's pretty advanced, right? So I said, no way. When she told me that, I said, wait, no, there has to be a way, right? And she was determined to find that way. And she did find that way. And I really think that her success has been consistency and accountability. Because those two, and someone else that's on here that still takes classes with me in the program, the Mojo for Life, you can tell me if it's not true, but you have to be consistent and you have to be accountable. Somebody or something has to hold you accountable, because it's so easy to say, not today. I'm not going to do that today. I can't today, right? All of those excuses. Yes, it's very easy. It's super easy, even for me. If I didn't do fitness, I'd be like, do I really need to work out today? I don't think so, right? So if I didn't have this job, probably not. I probably wouldn't. But yeah, being consistent. And that's with anything, right? The more you are consistent, the more you do the thing and you repeat it and you're just working at it, even when it gets boring, right? The more you're going to see the end goal of whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be fitness or dance, right? But the accountability is really, a lot of people say to me, oh, I just need some motivation. I'm like, do you need motivation, or do you need somebody to be like, get your butt up, right? That's what you need. Or you need somebody to say, you need to get to class, right? Or you need to start lifting weights, right? That's not motivation. You need accountability. You need somebody to be like, with the whip to get you. But yeah, so that story of that young lady that was told that she could not be a dancer. And by the way, now she is taking, well, I'm going to get her on in a second, but taking like a plethora of dance classes, and also super fitnessy, and her scoliosis is still there, but manageable. She found alternative ways to manage that. And she's now lifting weights heavier than I can. And I'm not going to expose her age. She could tell you that. But we have Candace. Candace is on. Yes, Candace. I'm going to ask her to unmute.
Sure.
And I'm going to add a spotlight with her. There she is.
I am.
So Candace, how old are you?
I am 67.
67. Okay. So tell us where you were 3 years ago. In other words, well, you were here in Florida, but I'm not talking about location. Like, where was your body? Where was your mind? And where is it?
So it's been quite a journey. One thing I do want to say is the doctors told me I would be in a wheelchair at 40. Mm-hmm. My scoliosis is severe. I have never had pain. I can outdance any of the 20 and 30-year-olds that I'm dancing with. And I made front line very quickly. So I've worked hard, really, but it is about commitment and accountability, totally. But also in that, I've lost 105 pounds over several decades. So when I met Katherine, I know this is going to sound crazy to people. I couldn't even look in the mirror at myself.
This is true. She was in the back of the room and
I was in the back. I could not. It took, and Katherine would go like this, like that. Like that was my signal. You look in the mirror, and that was pivotal to my journey. Looking at my body, and also wanting to be a ballerina and being told that disabled girls can't become ballerinas, because I had the beginnings of scoliosis even at 5, right? Mm-hmm. Although you would never know it to look at me. My orthopedic calls me a unicorn. What I have done in effect is braced myself all these years with muscle. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know, because it just changes everything about you.
Yeah. So now you are lifting weights.
Yeah.
Yes. And how much are you lifting?
So it depends on what class I happen to be in and who the instructor is. I am in Chicago now, so I go to I literally chose my home based on location to my fitness center. My world revolves around my classes.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe a 2-minute walk to the gym. And when I say gym, it's not like the Solavita gym. This is like several levels with a spa and eucalyptus towels and, you know, the whole multiple dance studios.
It's a
But
bougie spa. It's a bougie spa gym.
it is quite honestly. But Medicare covers the membership, which blows my mind. So it just depends. But what would have been in one of our classes online during COVID, 5 pounds. Actually, I had pink ones that were 3, which, wow. And then the heavy ones for those classes were 5s. My heavy now for overhead and moving multiple reps are now 15 to 20 pounds each.
Yes.
So I have built nice wide shoulders that might not work for everybody, but I love to see that. And I can say that I can now look in the mirror and say, wow. I was sitting I also do Pilates. I do mat Pilates and then I do Pilates reformer, and something really cool happened. About 2 weeks ago, a new instructor walked in. I was just sitting there and she said, wow, you've got muscle. I have never, I weighed 260 some pounds. I couldn't look in the mirror. I couldn't lift 3 pounds. I was a victim of domestic violence. I had no confidence. I did not feel pretty. I did not feel attractive. And that led into many of my relationships. Those little things are turning. It's not just fitness. It's emotional strength. It's intellectual strength. It's spiritual strength. That all comes together.
Yes.
But I loved what you said about accountability. That's what you just get your ass there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Remember when I first introduced you to bar and you guys used to curse at me because
now I take bar all the time, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Pam which leads me now to Pam. So Pam, I'm going to bring you on. I know she's going to be like, what? But I am going to put you on here because Pam also has been with me for a long time, right? And so Pam, where were you 3 years ago? I have shared your story a little bit here and there on Facebook, but why don't you tell us, where were you 3 years ago and where are you now?
During the shutdown, I missed my family and kids, and I ate, and I did keep doing your classes, but I could hardly keep up. Yeah. And then you did a challenge and said, you know, watch what you're eating and all of that. And that really, yeah. And now I'm addicted. All my friends are like, you know, do you want to go do this? I said, well, I can't until after a certain time of the day because I have to do my fitness. So
yeah, and also I remember during COVID too, like even we had a little bit of a conversation back and forth about where you were up here too, because it was, you weren't seeing your kids, you weren't seeing your grandkids. So that alone was, you know, hurting you. And then at the same time, you were kind of like doubting your every single move that you were making at the time, right? And so this was something else that I had learned. And that's when you hear me talking about, all of you hear me talking about negative self-talk. I didn't know what that was. until a lot of you started to tell me, yeah, I always second guess myself. I always have a voice inside me that tells me I can't do it. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I guess everybody does have that. So that's where I researched that. But yeah, so Pam, even though I don't know if a lot of you remember her from 3 years ago, but probably not, because her body looks amazing right now. And she hides behind her clothes still. And I know a lot of you do that, where you wear the big tops to hide. But it's baby steps, like Candace is saying. And I think also Pam has discovered along the way that this is something that becomes part of your life, as it was for me. Dance has always been something that I've run to when I felt sad, when things were, weren't going great in school, when things were bad family-wise, it's like I would always run in my dance class and I would forget. You forget what's going on for that, whatever it is, minutes, right? Even if you're doing 10 minutes of excruciating ab work that I give Pam. But yes, you forget for that moment because you're so focused on your body, you're focused on the choreography, you're focused on a lot of things. And Pam actually shared with me recently that even, okay, so during the pandemic, I'm like, guys, we're gonna learn ballet. They were like, what? That's a little weird. But you know what? Pam was like, okay, I've never done this before, but I'm gonna give it a shot. And what did you say to me the other day about your posture and all of that?
Well, it's taken me 2 years, 3 years, but I figured out a lot of my like lower back pain had to do with my posture. And I learned that from how we stand in bar.
Yeah.
Which is still, I have to do a lot of thinking when we do bar, which is a good thing.
Yes. But you're aware of it, right? So
Yes.
think about all of the people that walk around all day like this,
Yeah.
right? I know some of you are like, is she talking about me? So yeah, it just makes a difference. And that's something that in dance, we learn right from the beginning. I think for the first month or so, we just spoke a lot about posture, about balance, and about those things. So I'm going to put Pam, thank you, Pam, back in the thing. But yeah, so my point in having, Candace and Pam kind of share a little bit of their stories is because they were inspiration for me. And that is why, hearing women's stories, and with these two particularly, walking them through the story and walking together, because we all worked together. And when you work with me virtually, we work together. When I'm in person, I'm working with you together. So it's been such an amazing journey. And I'm kind of really proud of everyone that has successfully gone through any one of my programs. Even those of you that take classes in person with me, though, that's me. I'm still training each and every one of you. I know exactly what each and every one of you is capable of physically. So if I come over to you and I say something, it's because I really mean it. I really want you to pick up those legs. I really want you to be engaged, to be present in class. All of those things really fill my life. My husband always says, you don't have to do this, right? You don't have to work. You don't have to do all of this stuff, because it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work behind the scenes. It's a lot of work to be present in front of a class, to be a fitness instructor. I think you should all appreciate all of your fitness instructors, because it takes a lot of energy, not only physically, but mentally, for them to present this all to you in a way that's easy, in a way that's going to keep you engaged and coming back, right? And so, yeah, this whole experience, and I really think that, again, back to my grandmother, I really think that she is really rooting for me. And she's like, yes, go do your thing, do it right, and do it the way you want to. I have the opportunity to do it. So I'm doing it. I don't know what to tell you. This is me. This is my life. And all the steps, everything from my childhood to where I am now, I really do believe everything was meant to be. Was I meant to, move to Long Island and then discover the dance studio and then marry my husband? Yes, that all happened, right? Then come to Florida. When we moved to Florida, ladies, I never thought I was going to teach again. I left my dance career up in New York, and I said to my husband, we're closing the studio. I don't ever want to hear anything about a dance studio again. We're free, and he was like, yeah, well, then he came home one day. We were here for like a month, and he's like, yeah, so I spoke to the fitness director and they're looking for an instructor, like a sub. And here I am 8 months pregnant. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to teach a Zumba class. He's like, just do it. So what happens? I go, and right away, it just ate me up. It consumed me. And I was like, I think I want to teach again. So it's really an amazing and rewarding thing for me to make a living doing the thing that I love. So, and I don't think that it's very common, but that is something that we tell our kids. It doesn't matter what you do, just do what you love and do it 100%. Because it's still a job, right? Don't do something because you have to do it. Do it because you love it, because you're going to be doing it for the rest of your life. So you need to love it. So I think I covered everything. So I'm going to just, if you have any questions for me, you want to ask me anything, this is the time to ask. I'm going to check, let's see what Facebook looks like for a second. I'm going to go back. So yes, you were pregnant when I first met you in Solavita. Yes, Idalia Ahmed came to cover your class when you had your baby. Yes, that was 10 years ago. He is 10. Hi, Galen. Hi, Rini. Let's see, Adalia saying hi to Rini. Debbie, I lost my dad yesterday. Oh, I'm so sorry, Debbie. And I enjoyed listening to you. You are very special. Flying tomorrow to Israel. Okay. Yes. Oh, my thoughts and my heart are with you, Debbie. I know that is totally difficult. But I can't wait for you to come to class because we'll work through that. Thank you, Candice, for sharing your story. So there you go. Yes. But really, it has been such a pleasure. And I'm so glad, Lisa Walker, you're on here. You went through one of my programs and you were such a funny delight to have in the Shape Up because you also taught me that it's not always serious, right? That I should also be funny and comical, as many of my students have told me I should take my show on the road. Here's the road. I'm here on the road. Francine, Vivian, I know, Vivian, you're super busy all the time. I know that. But you get there. You do. I do see you sometimes. Yes. Cordell is on too. Yes. So thank you. I just want to say big thank you and a big hug, virtual hug to everybody, because you are my story. You have made me a part of your lives, and you've trusted me, and you've walked me along the way too. And I've learned so much, and I'm still learning so much from all of you. And I just want to thank you for that, because it takes a lot of courage to trust someone, to tell them how you feel, to tell them what you want, and even for yourself, right? To have somebody like me tell you, what do you want? What do you want? What are your goals? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be this? Do you want to be that? I can take you here or there, wherever you want to go. I can take you, right? So you're either going to be maybe somebody that just wants to start fitness, but you don't want to necessarily do 100% of the work. Okay, I got you. There's lots of stuff in the, the DanceFit Hub in the Facebook group, right? Free stuff, that's all in there. You want to take it up a notch and you want to get a little stronger. Okay, you could do that too. You want to be superwoman and you want to be like totally strong and fit and be able to, like Candace was saying, just, all together, any one of those scenarios, you want to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and be proud and happy of the person that you're looking at, right? Who's looking at you. And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. My husband always says that, like, don't worry. It's never about the scale. It's never about, the clothes. It's never about any of that. It's always how you feel inside for him. When I've spoken to him about different results and things like that, he's like, ultimately, he believes, this is his thoughts, but he believes that a woman really, the most powerful thing that you can give them is to make them feel good, right, about themselves, because that gives you the courage. It gives you great self-esteem. Candace is saying also the incredible benefits psychological. Yes, depression and anxiety are huge, right? And we are like our biggest critics. Like, don't think that I don't stand in front of the mirror and be like, oh, you're getting another wrinkle. Oh, you need to do your roots. Oh, you need to do this. Yes, I'm normal. I'm a human being and this happens. But again, this whole process is about being okay with that, engaging, like kind of embracing the fact that our bodies are changing, that we're aging gracefully, right? As people like to say, and that we're getting rid of that negative self-talk, because you know what? Who cares, right? We need to get out. We need to change the voice inside. We need to change the voice to say, you know what? You're doing great today. You're doing the best you can today. You're moving forward, not backwards. All of those little comments that we need to hear. And we need to tell ourselves that, because who else is going to tell us that? Not everybody tells us that, right? So I had tough times, but I really, yes, accountable. Yes, that's what you're going to need. The accountability. Trust me. If you do it, you're going to find a big difference, because you're pretty fit already. You're in good shape, but it's in here, right? That's what we kind of have to work. Yes, in here and here. That's what we got to work on most of the time. Sometimes that is what prevents us from moving forward. So there are ways to do that. And that's it. I'm here for all of you. Whatever it is, I am here. But thank you so much for joining me on this interview of myself and hearing my story, hearing the backstory, hearing the stories of people like Candace and Pam. I hope that they did give you a little inspiration in there, and that you now know all about me. I am an open book. I have nothing to hide from you. You know that what I do is really from the heart, and that I do really care about each and every one of you. So on that note, have a good night. Don't forget, next week we do have another interview. I'll be posting on that, and it's going to be on the spiritual side of things. So that should be interesting for all of you. And I'm going to give you a heads up that the following week, the last Thursday of the month, I'm going to do a free class for everyone to participate in. So it'll just be to kind of close up the month on a happy note. It'll be like ladies' night and the feelings right. Yeah, so it'll be a ladies' night. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great night, and I'll see you on the next one.